Good afternoon, everyone. This webinar is on building an NCLab community, and we're going to explore the community page together and look at some of the other online tools that are available to you as support from NCLab. Most of you know me, but I'll introduce myself. I'm Sheila Crawford Bunch. I am the Director of Education at NCLab. And this webinar series is made possible by a Nevada State Library Archives and Public Records Continuing Education grant funded by the Institute for Museum and Library Services through the Library Services and Technology Act. Just to bring you up to speed, NCLab is a self-contained desktop platform where you can learn and use computer programming, modeling, and many other STEM skills. You learn through self-paced, self-graded courses, and what that means is that the courses are divided into levels, and as you complete each level, it takes you to the next one, and you get immediate feedback on your answers. So that's what self-graded means. You then get to apply these skills using the apps in Creative Suite, and this is where you can create your own programs and models and games. And today we're really looking at strengthening your experience and knowledge base through our community. So we'll start by introducing some of the problems with delivering expertise and support, and all the different ways that NCLab does support the customers. We'll look at the community model and take a quick tour of some well-known online communities. And then we'll explore the NCLab community together. So we'll find information on the page, and I'll have you ask a question, answer a question. We'll look at voting points and badges and how we can develop the community. So before we start, I'd like you to log on to the community page, and you can see it starts with HTTPS. That's a secure site. And if you aren't already logged onto your desktop, you'll need to sign in just as you would on your desktop. Okay, so hopefully everyone is there. I'm going to show you what that looks like on my screen. I'm going to get out of the slideshow for a moment. And I have a dummy teacher account. The username is Ethel Mountain. And this is what the NCLab community page looks like from your point of view. It'll open up with questions, and we're going to go through this step by step a little later. So back to the slideshow. Now, one of the problems with providing knowledge is that it tends to come from one source, which we call the expert. And I found this little picture of Louis St. Cyr. He was a strong man in Canada about 100 years ago, and he liked to demonstrate feats of strength. And here he is being pulled apart by draft horses. And sometimes that's how it feels when you're in the position of being the expert, that you are being pulled in many different directions. What are some of the things that experts are expected to provide? Well, the expert provides trainings, certifications. The expert might be expected to chair meetings and present at conferences. And the expert might be expected to publish in current publications. So these are magazines and journals, newsletters, blogs, and so forth. And also to produce reference materials. And this could be reference books. In the case of vehicles, it might be a service manual, tutorials, how-to videos, and so forth. Well, there's one major problem with that. One person can't possibly be that expert. And so secondly, even if they are an expert, it's hard to find the time. But in our cyber world, we have an additional problem. That is that the information is constantly changing. So we need mechanisms to provide expertise that will keep up with our needs. And this is where we bring in the idea of community. So if you have a community set up, for example, a question can be asked many times, but it'll point to an answer. So a lot of times I've found that myself. I'll go to the browser and I'll type in a question and it'll take me to a community page or a forum. And sure enough, hundreds of other people have been asking that question and it has been answered. So I can look at the answer. I don't need to bother anyone. There it is. But also that answer can be built on. So maybe someone did take the time to answer the question, but it was maybe not adequate, or it could be built on in some form, elaborated. And in a community, you can do that. You can read an answer, you can go, well, I can add this little piece to it, and you can add to it. And the other advantage of community is you might have, say, 4 or 5 people answer the same question. And then you can select the best answer. So the next time someone logs on, that's what they see first. They see the best answer. And in a community, we're getting no longer just expertise from 1 or 2 people, but we're getting expertise and feedback from users. So this makes it much more appropriate in terms of what we tell you, and also brings your experience to the table. One thing I've noticed on many of these online forums is that expert users find themselves in new opportunities because other people read your stuff. This is one way to almost build a resume for future employment or advances, promotions, and so forth. If someone can read the type of things you write as an expert user, this is a great feather in your cap. And finally, the needs are best expressed by the users. We can guess at what you need, but sometimes we're off the mark. Maybe we've heard back from one person and we think everyone feels the same, and it turns out not to be the case. So this takes some of the guesswork out of service. So how do we provide expertise and support? Well, we have support built into the desktop itself. We have instructor resources, and these are documents that you can download and print, typically. And then we have the community page, which we're going to dive into later on. We have blogs, so these are interesting articles, or they might describe an event with some pictures, show you a process, so forth. And then this one is a little hidden. This is some software we use behind the scenes that help address your emails and messages, and these are typically more situational help. I can't add any more users, or our desktop stopped working. The answer in 7.1 doesn't seem to be correct. Those are the type of things that typically come through support. Going into the desktop a little further, you can see I've made a huge list here of the types of support that you find on your desktop, and let's take a peek at that. Go and look at our customer's desktop. It's the same screen here. So on the desktop itself, you have the opportunity to leave a message, and this will show up in our support software. Then within the courses themselves, if I open up one of the courses, there are a number of ways that we support you. One is that you get tutorials and videos that explain how to do things. So that's a form of support. This is all about the square command. And then we also have a help menu, which leads you back to the video and can also give you a list of commands so that you can always check out all the commands. It's a searchable document. We have a book that teaches you a little bit more in depth than what's on the screen. And then now as a teacher, this teacher doesn't have it, but you should have a solution button as well that will show you the solutions, and this will let you help your students as well. So those are the types of support you find on the desktop. Then in the instructor resources, and you do need your username and password to access this. Again, if you're already logged on, it'll recognize it. And these are typically printable documents. So in the Carroll course, for example, if I click on that, I can find a syllabus. And this is nice if someone asks, well, what's in the course? This is a very simple document that tells you what's there. Go back this way, I guess. Okay, you have, again, the textbook. You have lesson plans. So these can be downloaded and printed and used. You have a pacing guide, which gives you an idea of how long each section takes. And again, that's printable and shareable. And you have, once again, the solution manual, but this is in one place, and you can, say, be walking around and look up the solutions as you go, and that enables you to help your students or your participants a little more easily. In the case of Carroll, we also have student journals, and we have some other materials. So these are all the type of things that you're going to find on the instructor resource page. Support at NCLab.com. I'll just show you what that looks like from my end. So I have this window here, and if someone has an issue, it'll start showing up in this unassigned tickets window. I can look at the ticket, I can communicate directly back or test the situation and let our developers know if there's a problem, or a sysadmin if it's those type of issues. So those tend to be more urgent type issues. And then we have blogs. And the blogs they're just articles. For instance, here is an article on a camp we did with the Boy Scouts. There's an article on Python. So if someone's saying, well, why on earth are you teaching Python? Then here's this nice little article that you can show them. So we have quite an archive of different articles that you can refer to. And back to the community page. This is where we're going to be exploring. So the benefit of the community page is we can get into those question and answer streams. Let me go back to presenting. And provide timely resources for your camps, clubs, and classes. And just a quick note here, some people call these forums, and I did a little research, and from what I could determine, a community also involves the company, in other words, us. Forums are typically more peer-to-peer support, so that's a minor difference between the two. Some well-known communities, and we can take a look at these real quick. Google has product forums, so these are more along the line of forums, for all of their products and all of their apps, and this is what it looks like. So I can click on any of these icons, and let's say I'm working on this project Phi. And there's a whole bunch of topics that people have posted, and it can tell me how many people have viewed. There's one expert reply. This one has 2 expert replies. So it works very much the same way that we work. And you can see this one even has been given a badge that it's been answered. So that must have been something fairly critical, and the company came back and said, yes, you're good to go on that. Okay, another community that's quite popular, this is one that computer programmers use a lot. It's called Stack Overflow. And these tend to be more technical questions that have to do with programming. So you can see the topics: show right error, recommended action, VBA, grammatically change query, SQL based on user input, comparing two curves in MATLAB. These are fairly technical sorts of questions. But again, this is the same. Ooh, someone didn't like that one. They had 3 votes down. So there must have been a problem with that answer. And it's the same idea. You can see how many people have looked at it, if it's been answered or not. And some of these questions obviously go unanswered. The third one that's been gaining in popularity, and this is more of a general interest site, is Quora. And in Quora, you can modify your feed by determining which topics you want to follow. So, one popular site that sort of worked along these lines, but it was pinning what you're interested in, of course, is Pinterest. And this one is more of a question and answer type format. And it's quite a popular site. So not in the way of recommendations, but just to give you an idea of the types of community sites that are out there that are quite popular. Okay, so we already signed into the community page, and for those of you who might be joining us late, this is what you need to do. You need to go to HTTPS, it's a secure site, community.nclab.com, and if you're not already signed into your desktop, you will need to sign in. Okay, if you want to see your standing on the site, you can click on your name to see your profile, and this example here is for my dummy teacher account, Ethel Mountain. So if you see Ethel Mountain, it's me. I'm just trying to get a feel for what it's like at the user end. And Ethel Mountain has earned 5 points because Ethel Mountain asked a question. She asked, how do I set up my classroom? So as you earn points, you gain privileges on the community site. All right, let's go back and forth now between the slideshow and browsing the community site. There's a couple of ways to search for information. One is that you can look at categories, and then under the categories, it'll pull up some questions. And the other way is to look through tags. Keyword search does not work that well. It's very limited. I wouldn't recommend it. And you're going to find that on a lot of websites. They've gotten away from keyword searches. So even when a document contains the words that you're looking for, it doesn't get pulled up. I'm going to go back to the community page. And let's take a look at these tags. So for instance, if I clicked on 3D printer, then it's going to change my question tag here to 3D printer. And there's 3 separate topics related to 3D printing. One is a poll, and that's more about whether or not you have a 3D printer at your library or school. And let's build a drone, of course, used a 3D printer to print the drone frame. So that has some information on printing with the 3D printer. And then the art project we did, the pendants, of course, were printed on a 3D printer. So this is one way to get to the topics you're interested in. If you click on See More Tags, then it'll bring up the list alphabetically, like this, of the tags. And you can search them by popularity too. So this gives you a little bit different ordering on the tags. And then if you search by category, then you can say look at a particular course. And you might be looking for stuff that for libraries versus schools, maybe looking for some ideas on camps. So these are different ways to search to see if a question has already been asked. All right, so this is where I'm going to ask you to ask a question, and you start by clicking on that orange button. So let's go back to the orange button, ask a question. And you'll see it'll pull up a little window like this, and you can either ask a question or create a poll. So that's what I'd like you to do right now is ask a question. You type your question in here. You can relate it to a category there if you like. And you can put some more details, more explanation within this window. And then when you're done, you can submit the question. If you want to tag it, you can add tags to 5. And if not, we can always go back and tag it later if it looks like there are some relevant topics. So I'm going to wait a couple minutes here and see what people post for questions. And it will show up on latest when they're posted. Don't worry if you think it's a trivial question. This is really for practice. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so thank you. I have a question here that says, NCLab coding clubs and camps. Can I teach an after-school coding club or an NCLab summer camp at my school? If I have permission from my administrators, what steps do I need to take with NCLab to start the process? That's a very good question. Yes, there's a lot of work that goes into setting up a camp once you have permission. And we do actually have a document that will help you with that. It's a little out of date. We're in the process of updating it with new information, but it's still helpful. It'll help you with everything from marketing to signing up parents and their children, providing snacks, activities, getting your materials together, creating a schedule that makes sense for the time frame, and so forth. Notice that you can insert a link into your answer. In fact, you can insert pictures as well or documents. We do curate the site to some extent, so if something's not appropriate, we will notify you and we will remove it. But on the other hand, we want to encourage rich community responses. When you insert a link, you can also edit it so that the text that displayed isn't a long string, which is the link itself. You can type in text that is descriptive or maybe the title of the article, and that will help people understand what you're posting. As I mentioned before, we are updating our camp document, so it'll have new information that will be helpful to you. And of course, please feel free to add to this response. You have a lot of experience that's worth sharing with the community as well. And of course, if you think a question or an answer is useful, you can upvote the question. You can see the button turned gold and it has a little text that says this is useful. Once you have enough points accumulated, I encourage you to do that. Well, thank you, Jen, for that question. Okay, let's try creating a poll now. Polls a little different. These are fun to create. So this time when you ask a question, instead of clicking on ask a question, you go to create a poll. I'm going to create a question myself because our next webinar is on 3D printing, and I'm interested in knowing what concerns, what concerns do you have with 3D printing? And I'm going to put this in the category of probably fits best with 3D modeling. And then I'm going to write a little text. What is the hardest part How can we help you? And I am going to make that better about 3D printing. Okay, I am going to create a bunch of answers. One is exporting the file. Okay, and then I'm going to add some more answers. Preparing the file with the printer slicer software. And then I'm going to add another answer. Keeping the machine working properly. Clean, accurate. The results are disappointing. Sometimes that is the case. And then I'm going to create one more answer. I'd like to work with more materials. Okay, so then when you go to the calendar, so I am going to make this poll go all the way up to the 29th. Our next webinar is on the 30th. So really any information up to that point is helpful. And I'm going to make it multiple choice so you can actually answer more than one time. And then go ahead and submit it. So now when I go back to home, I can go to this question. And now you can see that I have several possible responses. So I'm going to go ahead and answer this myself. And I'm going to say that these are the two hardest things for me, and I submit the answer. The answers so far are 50-50 between those two categories. So when you actually vote on the poll, I should say this is a different thing than the other kind of voting. When you submit it, you'll see how everyone else is answering. So if you're out there, maybe try answering that particular poll, and then I'd love to see if you've created one of your own. And you can see this one is flagged as a poll, so you can tell the difference. And you notice here I can also add a comment. So even though you're just voting on a poll, you can also explain maybe your concerns a little bit more. All right, well, let's move on for now, but that's how polls work. You can ask a question, but you can also answer a question. And this is where you can share the benefit of your experience. And a few people already have done that. You guys are out in the field. You know what it's like in the real world. And very often your experience makes more sense than someone hiding behind a computer screen and hoping they know what they're talking about. Scroll through the questions and post an answer of some kind. And again, if you want to answer a question, you can open it several ways. You can open it up from hot questions, you can open it up from latest answers, and you can open it up from the main screen here. I can take one more peek, see if I see some latest answers. Nope, that's just mine. Okay, well, let's keep going here. Another feature of these community pages is that you can vote up or vote down an answer, and you gain the privilege of voting up fairly soon. You have to have at least 20 points to vote an item up, but that's easy enough to get. You can gain 5 points every time you ask a question and 10 points every time you answer a question. And if your question is voted up, it gets 5 points and so forth. So once you've gained 20 points, you are able to vote an item up. Now, this is not necessarily like on Facebook. Really, voting helps move things. So if you think an answer is particularly good, it'll help move it to the front. Or if you think a question is important, that helps move the question to the forefront. So again, these are different ways you can earn points to gain standing in the community. And these are the emojis for thumbs up and thumbs down. All right, so badges. Now we haven't set badges up yet, but badges they're extremely popular with kids, and sometimes they're popular with adults. It depends on how invested they feel in the community. But we can use them not just as a way of showing your standing in the community, but maybe to illustrate your particular type of expertise. For example, maybe you completed the Python 1 course, and so you'd have a badge that says you've completed it. And maybe you speak Spanish, so you could have a badge that indicates that you speak Spanish. Or maybe you're a great person for driving conversations on the community page, and you might get a badge that says you're a conversation starter because you've asked 20 questions. We've gone through some of the features of the community page and also how we deliver support and expertise at NCLab. And as always, we want to improve this, and we need your input to be able to do that. And I really hope to see some activity on the community page in the next couple of weeks that'll help us build what you need in your libraries. We took a look at some well-known community pages, and then we toured around a bit on the community page itself. We tried asking a question. I showed you how to answer a question and how to vote, how to get points, and together we're going to work on developing this community. It really is the place where we keep the relationship alive and vibrant. I always end by inviting you to join the community. You know where to do that now. You can always reach us at support. Again, this is especially for things that are urgent. There's a phone number. Instructor resources, this is where you can get a lot of materials to help you out with your program. Before we go, our next webinar is not going to be on Tuesday. It's going to be on Wednesday, May 30th because of Memorial Day. And we are going to look a little deeper into 3D printing and modeling. So again, I hope we get some feedback on the poll. This is going to help us respond to that. I'll be working closely with the makerspace here at Innovations to show you some tricks of the trade in 3D printing. Also how to make good models in the 3D modeling program. And then our final webinar, which will be at the beginning of June, will be about making puzzles, printable 3D puzzles. And that should be a fun camp topic. Like the pendants, they're fairly flat, so they should be somewhat easy to print out and fun for your students. Okay, I'm going to go over to our main screen here. Going to see if anyone has any questions. I'm going to unmute everyone.
So can any of the points that you earn go for NCLab goodies?
Oh, that's a great question. Right now, we haven't really discussed what those could be. Maybe my voice on your answering machine. That's a joke. For those of you who listen to Wait, Don't Tell Me, that was always the prize they gave to people who participated in their game. But we'll see what we can do about that. I think that's a really interesting idea. I've given it a little bit of thought myself. For now, I would say the biggest reason to participate is, first of all, to increase its usefulness to you, but also it looks good. I was impressed. One fellow who was one of the experts on Quora got a very high-end job with Uber after spending some time on Quora. And so it just goes to show you, it's just another way to to show what you're made of. So that's a little bit of an intrinsic reward. Any other
Nice.
questions? And feel free to type in chat as well.
So your webinars are every 2 weeks then?
Yes, we have a series of them, and there's 2 more coming up in the series. And then we're probably going to do the same thing again next year with different topics. And all the webinars are turned into YouTube videos, and we post those on the community page together with the slideshow. So you can use the slideshow as a reference material. And some of the webinars also have extra materials. For example, in the Carol Competitions webinar, we had a form that you could use for your judging. And the Pendants webinar, we had a lesson plan on how to do that lesson and print out the results. So there's sometimes other materials as well. And those all get posted on the community page.
Great. Okay, I do have one last question. So when NCLab comes out with new courses and new products, like you guys didn't have the drone a couple years ago, I don't think, will you be posting your developments on this page?
We will have some information on this page, and we'll also announce it on the main website. And
Oh, great.
probably
Okay.
you may even see a message on your desktop when you log in if we have something new coming up.
Okay, awesome.
All right, well, just checking to see if anyone else has any questions. And I don't see any. Well, thank you very much for participating. I love the poll option too. I just see a comment here. It says that I love the poll option. And you can have a little fun with these too. It's always interesting to see what the experience of a lot of people is. It sometimes is quite surprising.
Well, I'm more excited to use this page now, and I'm going to bug a couple of my friends who are teachers to get on too, because I think they'd really benefit from it as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yes, let's grow this community of ours.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you for showing all of this, because I've gone through it, but you showing it and helping us to use it has been fun.
All right. Okay, well, I'm going to sign off for now, and this should be posted on the community page in a couple of days. And thanks everyone for joining today.
Yep. Thank you, Sheila, so much.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.